Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to actually just go through and see how some Fujifilm files look in some different software. One of them being Capture One Pro and the others being some open source software. So let's turn to the computer and take a look here. Here I'm actually on Windows here, and this is the file from the Fujifilm X-T2. Under Capture One Pro, it is using the generic profile. There is not a Pro standard profile for this camera. Obviously, you do have your curves for your different film presets that are actually in the camera, the film recipes. But on here, this is actually the 35mm 1.4 shot at 1.4. So it's essentially equivalent of about a 52 millimeter lens, but the image, it is fairly sharp. I do like how it looks. However, I did do independent red, green, and blue curves here. You know, in the regular RGB and the Luma I have not touched. I did bring down highlights, pushed the exposure just a little bit. This image looks fairly good here in Capture One Pro. I actually do like how Capture One Pro renders the Fujifilm files. The color is not like oversaturated. It actually is very close to what I saw. I am finding that the Fuji colors just straight out of the camera though are very similar to my Canon EOS R. Before you start editing them, they're almost identical to my Canon. The only difference I notice is obviously the quality of the lenses. But there's that image in Capture One Pro. In art, I have not applied any RGB tone curves. I've kind of just given it a little bit of a processing. You got this here. Art seems to add 2 tone curves for some reason on the image. I honestly don't know why it's doing that, but it is. Other than that, I adjusted white balance for the skin tone over here to be on this skin tone line. I did lower the vibrance of the image because it was super saturated. But as you can see, now this is also another thing showing the performance of the open source software is substantially slower than Capture One Pro. I do like how the image looks. I do feel though that it is slightly oversaturated a little too much, and the shadows are down too low for what I prefer. Now in art, the images do look good. You know, art is a program I was using under Linux for reading CR3 files, but ever since Exiv 2 got updated in Darktable 3.6, and if I try to open a folder even in the file explorer that contains CR3 files, it crashes the file explorer under Linux. So it's one of the reasons I'm on Windows right now. Is it just seems like whenever I try to read CR3 files under Linux, it just is causing nothing but issues. But here in Darktable is substantially closer to Capture One Pro. You know, if I go back here to the highlight reconstruction here, so I could take a snapshot and go back here, you know, I can zoom in. Darktable generates its preview fairly fast. I mean, it is using OpenCL, so the image looks very good. You know, I did do RGB curves actually inside of Darktable. I recreated the RGB curve as close as I could to replicate the color of Capture One Pro, because this is kind of a preset that I am working on in Capture One Pro and in Darktable. I'll probably make it for art and raw therapy, but right now I'm focused on Capture One Pro and Darktable. Something I noticed, you know, people always say, you know, use Capture One Pro with the Fujifilm X-Trans sensor, because in Lightroom you get like these wormy looking pixels in Lightroom, and that is not happening in Darktable. If I go back to art, zoom in, let it process, but if I zoom in just to 200% and then come back here, let it process, art is getting that kind of wormy effect I notice with the X-Trans sensor. Now I know you can change the camera demosaicing under art, and this is one of the demosaic modes that Darktable is using, is this right here. So if I just do 1 pass, not really a change, 3 pass, because it knows it's an X-Trans sensor. So if I go back to Darktable, go here, go into demosaic, it's using single pass, but it's not producing that wormy effect. I mean, it's somewhat there, but not really very bad. If I go to that same area of the image in Capture One Pro, it is not there at all. But let me go over here and remove this demosaicing. Maybe just let it remove the color noise. The pixels, you can see the noise here where I've just removed the color noise, but it is a lot cleaner in Capture One Pro between all three. I would not recommend opening X-Trans sensor files in art or raw therapy because of this effect. This is something that actually Lightroom does to X-Trans sensor files that I've been seeing from people on YouTube. So if you want to use open source with the X-Trans sensor, I would definitely recommend Darktable. It is actually closer to Capture One in terms of its image quality on the demosaicing to Capture One Pro. Capture One Pro, you know, by default is smoothing out the noise quite a bit, but you know, if I just drop this stuff all the way down to where it's doing no processing on the image at all, you know, it's very similar to Darktable, you know. So Capture One is still slightly cleaner, and honestly I do I do actually prefer the rendering, especially of the hair in Capture One Pro. Let me just drop back out. Now obviously I can adjust the curves a little bit, the white balance a little bit, and fix it up a little. But if I just go between Capture One and Darktable, just looking at the hair here, the color in Capture One looks really good. The white balance is obviously different, but it is very easy to match Darktable to Capture One Pro. It's been my experience, it's very easy to match them. Art and raw therapy, you can match the two. Art and raw therapy, I was testing raw therapy with these images too, but they are super oversaturated in raw therapy for some reason. I find that even with my Canon CR3 files, they're very oversaturated. But as you can see, it's the X-T2 with the XF35mm f1.4R. I had it set at 1.4. I had it at 640 of a second. ISO 200, which is the base ISO. I know I could have gone to the low mode, which would have dropped it to 100 ISO. For this image set that I'm working on right now, it is for the cover of this person's book. So I'll probably actually do all the editing in Capture One Pro just so I can get extremely close to what I want. But it looks to me like the presets that I'm creating are going to work best in Darktable. I'll be able to match my presets in Capture One Pro inside of Darktable. And actually in here I'm actually using the exposure, filmic RGB. I do have denoise profiled on here, but I'm only letting it remove the color noise. I'm not letting it smooth the image at all. Color balance RGB, I did do some adjustments here. You know, so in Darktable to match my look in Capture One Pro, there is a little bit more work to do it, but it's very doable in Darktable. Hopefully Darktable soon gets actual full support for CR3 files, because the Canon is definitely my primary camera. Because I also shot these exact same images with the Canon 135 f2, so the background's a little more blurry, but that's how I noticed that the Fuji files and the Canon files, in terms of just straight out of camera raw, look very similar. So I was able to just apply a preset to the Canon file and then apply that same preset to the Fuji file, and the only difference I noticed was white balance difference, and beyond that they look the same. But let me know what you guys think. What do you think of the Fuji system? You know, the lens I shot those images with were the 35-1.4. I got that lens used at my local camera store. The video I'm shooting right now with on this Fuji camera, it is the X-T2 shot in 4K with F-Log. It is the 23mm f2R WR, so it is a weather sealed lens. The gasket is there. Now that I have the 35-1.4 and the 23 f2, those are the lenses I'm using the most. I plan on doing an actual behind the scenes photo shoot with the 35. Probably going to do kind of a fashion shoot, but I'm also going to shoot a fitness video using the 35 and probably the 23. But I'm also probably going to adapt my Canon lenses to it, because I went ahead and got the adapter to mount Canon EF lenses to it, which I will, even though they do autofocus, I'll be manually focusing those lenses, but also be manually focusing the Fuji lenses for that video shoot. Let me know what you think. What do you think of how the files look in the 3 different programs? Which program do you prefer? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you have any ideas that you want me to shoot with this Fuji camera, test out, let me know. Like, subscribe, comment below, and share the video, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.